Hey everyone, it's Shelly Hoffman here in Baldwinsville at Heart Home Community, and today's the first Monday of the month. And the chief and I had said a couple weeks ago that we were going to touch base the first Monday of the month, and obviously at that point, Chief, we were thinking Memorial Day, things like that. But I'm sure there's other things on your mind today that you want to talk about. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you kind of give us an idea of what's going on, and how can you update us with what's been happening.
Morning, Shelley, and yes, certainly when we last spoke, we had some other things on mind that we'd be talking about, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to and address things that are happening not only here in central New York but across the country, and in the wake of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And first, just let me say that. Certainly, I do not have all the details, and no one does at this point. But I certainly trust that Chief Arredondo out in Minneapolis has much more knowledge of this situation than I do, and I trust that he's acted appropriately in dismissing the four individuals, the four officers that were on scene during that incident. I'm not going to comment on what was right or wrong. I'm just going to simply say that I trust that the chief of police there is acting in the best interest of their community right now, and that was the right decision. I just want to let people know here in Baldwinsville that we have a pretty stringent use of force policy, and that our use of force policy requires that officers intervene if they feel that use of force is being applied inappropriately. And we train to that. So, to that point, if one of our officers sees someone, whether it be me or someone else, using force that is inappropriate on an individual, it is their duty to actually intervene. And we train regularly on that, and that use of force policy is well known amongst our staff and our members. So I think it's important for our community to know what we do and how we're trained. And uh, obviously, the actions of the officers that were involved in that incident have sparked some outrage across the country, and certainly I can understand people's frustration at that. And here we all support, obviously, peaceful protests, and I know that a number of those have gone on in the city of Syracuse, and there's been situations 2 nights ago specifically, and then last night where some of those protests became less than peaceful. On Saturday, members of our department responded to the city of Syracuse to assist the Syracuse Police Department and the Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement agencies from across the area to ensure the safety and security of people within the city. Last night, we had a large contingent of officers on duty here in the village. Obviously, a countywide curfew has been enacted from 8 at night until 7 in the morning. We posted on our social media Facebook page a copy of County Executive McMahon's directive, and we did ask for everyone to abide by that. There's reasons why that's in place countywide, and so we had officers on duty so we could ensure that if there were situations elsewhere in the county that we needed to respond to assist our colleagues in law enforcement, that we had adequate staffing that we could do that, but also that we would have adequate staffing for here in the villages as well. I know that there's a lot of conjecture and rumors on social media. I can tell you that our social media accounts, we are not going to engage in that kind of conjecture and rumor. We're just going to respond to what we know to be as facts, and to try and get that information out there as much as we can based upon factual information that we are aware of. So, that's that's really what I wanted to say about those particular issues. I don't know, Shelley, if you had some questions or if people have reached out to you with some questions pertaining to these things that I can try and answer. I'll certainly talk a little bit later on about some of the other things we've been dealing with over the last few weeks because in the midst of all these, obviously, we still have the pandemic that's occurring, and we have regular calls for service that we've been dealing with also that I do want to comment on that are important to public safety and traffic safety and some other things. But I'll certainly answer any questions that might have been forwarded in to people. I know you posted last night and asked if there were any questions, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any of those that people might have.
Well, a lot of the questions that were brought in, other people had chimed in. So I was just thinking maybe just to get your thoughts on it. So one being, people have a tendency, they have patterns in life. And, we have a lot of neighborhoods that are probably up until last night felt like they were safe. There was a lot of comments on social media this morning of people saying it was the first time they didn't feel safe in their homes because of rumors and things that were going on social media, possibly through the media itself. But one being is I've always walked my dog at night, and people have said, well, I don't think anyone's going to care if you're walking your dog in the neighborhood. I have thoughts on that as far as, does that take the time away from the police if that call comes in? But did you get questions like that at all? Or last night I looked out my window at 9, I saw a couple people walking who may look like people who may not have even been aware that there was a curfew yet. But did you get calls like that or concerns, or what can you just share from your point of view of people who say, if I'm walking my dog at 6 a.m., what's the big deal?
And I did have a couple people reach out to me that I'm, personal friends with and said, hey, I like to go for a run at 5 a.m. Can I do that or not? And I just simply responded that, look, I can't give you permission to do that. County executives put forth an order. I certainly can't supersede what he has said. And we did last night have some folks walking around. And as I said, we had officers in our patrol cars. We had officers doubled up in patrol vehicles, and we had operational plans in place if people needed to respond elsewhere to assist other law enforcement agencies. But I would just ask people to be cognizant, because if someone does call in, that means that we are going to have to respond to that. We are going to have to talk to folks. And that's kind of last night what we were doing when people were out and about. If our officers saw them, it's much more of an educational type of thing, because most of the people we spoke to, as a matter of fact, pretty much all of them that were out and about, and our officers said, geez, did you happen to know that there was a curfew? And the people were like, what are you talking about? So they didn't even realize that. And I understand that people have routines that they like to maintain. And I would just ask that, maybe for the next day or two, a couple of days, while this is in effect here, I think it maybe goes to what, the 4th. I'd have to look at the order specifically. If we could just abide by that for the next 3-4 days that the county executive has asked for, and allow for this process to occur and hopefully subside, that will allow us not to be able to misdirect some resources for somebody who calls on walking their dog. We can't control who might call, but if we obviously do get called, we're going to have to respond, because we respond to every call for service to the best of our ability to try and solve any problem that occurs. So while I understand this might be inconvenient, I understand that this might feel as if it's a little bit over the top because for countywide, but there are specific reasons in place that's been done countywide. And I'm privy to some of those reasons. And I would just ask and let people know that I feel that those are very sound and just reasons why those decisions were made in that fashion. I agree with them totally, why this is countywide and not just isolated to the city of Syracuse, and fully support it. So I would ask that you trust in that judgment in that regard, and just try and abide by that request and that directive as much as you possibly can. I know it's going to be an inconvenience for a little bit of time, but I think if everyone can just pull together here, that this will subside over time here.
Right. And and you can't say this, Chief, and you may disagree with me when I do say this, but we did have a comment about people who, they don't have a yard to walk their dog. And people who are not dog lovers, they might think, what's the big deal, this, that, or the other thing. But one thing I'm going to say as a community member, I'm pretty much aware of my neighbors. And if I have a neighbor that's walking 5 or 6 houses down just to get their dog out of the house to do their business and come back, it's not a reason to call the police necessarily, to waste your time. And again, that's my opinion. You can disagree with it, but sometimes in that sense, people go above and beyond on what they call for. Now, if you see people partying on the corner at 7:30 and they're still there at 8:30, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know what their mindset is. So sometimes common sense comes into play as well. That's just my 2 cents. People can comment and say, keep your mouth shut, child. That's fine. But the police resources, I live in the village, like most people know by now. I have a business in the village, and we do get concerned. And I talked to a couple other business owners, and you look at the broken windows downtown Syracuse, and you think, okay, if that happens to my business, how do we pay for it? But I'm assuming that usually when there's a peaceful protest, it's planned. You would be aware of it if something like that was going to happen in Baldwinsville or Liverpool or Jordan, like the places closest to us, correct? Not just Syracuse, if it's a planned protest.
And if it's planned, and quite frankly, if someone's planning something, we will work with those folks to ensure that their right to gather and protest in a peaceful manner is upheld, and to try and do everything we can to ensure that their rights are not infringed upon as well. So we fully support that. We understand if people want to do that, we'll do everything we can to help plan and support people from doing that. Again, kind of circling back to the social media comments, last night there was a lot of things going around. I actually had one of our officers here specifically to handle communications, to monitor social media postings and what was being reported. And that officer said, Chief, there's a report of people being at a particular location. Wasn't in the village, but not too far away, that people are gathering there. We don't know where they're going to go. I actually took a ride up there. It's a short distance away from the village. There wasn't a soul in sight at that particular location. So sometimes information it flows through there that is accurate, not accurate. We're working this morning on operational planning for the next couple of days, as well as it's come to our attention that there might be a potential gathering. We're going to work with the person that made that post to see if that's what their plans are, and to ensure that can occur in as orderly and peaceful fashion as possible. Because if people want to gather, we want people to be able to do that. That's their right to do so, and we want to ensure that that's not infringed upon. But on the flip side, we want to do everything we can to ensure that it remains what the organizers intend for it to be, which is something peaceful and for their voices to be heard. So to your point, obviously we're monitoring those things, and we're going to do everything we can that we ensure the safety and security of those involved, and also for the property and business owners and residents of the village that choose not to be involved. And both people have equal rights as far as we're concerned on those particular situations.
Right, because obviously the people that are planning the protest are not anticipating anything bad. That's not their point. It sometimes takes away from their point.
Exactly. But, and it's a small minority of individuals that are looking to incite further violence beyond the peaceful protest. Almost all the people that are involved, they want to be heard. They feel as if they want to do something. And right. I'm not aware of any police officer, and as you know, I've been on the job here for nearly 33 years. From 2017 to 18, I served as the president of the New York State Association, Chiefs of Police Association. I'm familiar with officers and chiefs across the state. I'm the representative to the International Association Chiefs of Police, SACOP Division for New York State. I have friends and colleagues in this business across the country. And I have not spoken to anyone over the last few days, and I've spoken to a lot of people and a lot of communication through texting and other means, that would support the actions of those officers involved in this incident. So that's why I'll circle back to my original comment. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I trust that the chief in Minneapolis has much more detail than I do and has acted appropriately in dismissing those four individuals. Um, so, many of us in law enforcement, I'm just going to say and ask for the community that, just as if we don't judge a broad stroke by maybe a teacher who's done something inappropriately with a student, or a politician who's maybe abused their authority in office, or a doctor who's maybe committed some sort of malpractice, or some other professional that hasn't handled their business in an appropriate fashion. We don't brush that entire profession, paint them with a broad stroke. I would ask for you to not do the same thing with the police officers you might come in contact with here locally in Baldwinsville or locally in our county. Almost all the officers here are hardworking men and women that go to work every day and have taken an oath to support their communities and try and keep the community safe as much as we can. And that means everyone. And that's our goal is we go to work every day. Our goal, our philosophy here at the Baldwinsville Police Department is, if we're dispatched to a call, is to try and solve that call so we don't have to go back. Obviously, we can't do that every time, but I think our track record over the last 30 to 40 years speaks pretty well to that. We have a long history of 45 plus years of community service policing. Since 1972 here in this village, nearly 50 years now, our focus has been on community service policing and service with understanding. That's on our patch, and that is our motto. So our goal is to try and be understanding and compassionate to all segments of the community. I would just ask for our community members to kind of keep that in mind during these trying times.
I would definitely agree with that. And, there's a lot of things on social media, like you said. One thing that I saw that kind of resonated when I thought to, we texted last night, you said that you were patrolling last night. And I just said, be careful, but was you show respect to people, not just you, but your whole office. When, I've been at my building late at night and someone has pulled up, or people talk about the village of Baldwinsville and the police department, is you show respect. And a lot of times you give that respect, and it's a two-way street, how people want to be treated and how they deserve to be treated, and the way that they are treated in reality. And there's been a lot about that out there on social media, is you show respect to get respect, and you guys do. At least every account I've heard of or come across in the community is the people of our community are treated respectfully by your department, which is nice.
And I'm going to, something just popped into my head that, there's many people in the community that might not believe this, but it is 100% true that probably 8, if not more, maybe 9 out of every 10 people that we have to actually arrest and put in handcuffs and bring back to our booking room, almost every one of them, when they leave, shake the officer's hand, stick their hand out, shake their hand, and say thank you to them. And you might think that that's the strangest thing, but I can tell you, I've been here 33 years. That happens almost every single time we have someone in our custody, that they stick their hand out and say thank you and shake the officer's hand, because it's very rare that doesn't occur, because we do our very, very best to treat everyone we come into contact with, even the people we have to arrest, if not more so them, with a level of respect and dignity, because our goal is to get them in and out of here as quickly as possible and get them back onto their life and what they're doing. Mistakes were made. We obviously have to deal with those, but hopefully we can move everyone forward. And so it kind of goes to your point that you just made. And as you were talking, that really jumped up in my mind, that people are really surprised when they've ridden along with our officers to see that occurs. And we do our very, very best day in, day out to try and treat people with respect And because our community, quite frankly, provides that level of respect in almost every circumstance back to us as well. So that is a two-way street, but I think we've got a long track record here since our department was reorganized in late 1972, and the focus has been on community service policing. And even if you circle back to when President Obama was in office and he issued a presidential commission report in 2015, and they had the 6 pillars of law enforcement: building trust and legitimacy, community service, training, technology, social media. I think when you take a look at those things and that they encouraged police departments to be engaged in, there's not one of those that I didn't feel that we were already doing a pretty good job in, except I would say with technology and social media. We've had cameras in our cars for a long time. Our Facebook page is going strong now. And some of the things we've been doing, reaching out over the last year to 18 months in social media, has been a tremendous improvement for us. But I think in all those other aspects of community involvement and engagement, officers involved in the school and with youth, we've been at the forefront of those things. So I think that has helped us in our community in some of the programs that we provide, whether it be our house check program, our foot patrol program, and other things we do for people in the community. That has helped us build those community partnerships, and that's what brings us closer to the community and the community closer to us. It's a two-way street.
No, I agree with that. We did have one other question, Chief. I think you may have answered indirectly when you said that you have cameras in the car. Going back to the technology, they had asked if you had any cameras on your armor or bodysuits at all. I don't think the village does, but someone did ask that question.
You know, we've been evaluating that. It's been a cost concern for us as to how much this is going to cost, legacy costs for how long we need to maintain the video for. But I actually have a list going of things that we need, and body cameras are on that list. We've had cameras in our cars for 15 or 20 years now. Quite frankly, as I've been in a command position here, lieutenant or chief, for the last 20 years, probably 80 to 90% of any complaints we've received have come from vehicle and traffic stops. Something as simple as, geez, the officer was rude, or the officer said this or that. And in probably 99.9% of those occurrences, as soon as we've said, well, we've got cameras in the cars, we'll watch the video, people have either recanted or mentioned or modified their story in some way. So we haven't had the push to go to the body cams, only because most of our issues or complaints have come from traffic stops. That's where they've resulted from. But I can tell you that I'm strongly going to recommend to the village board that we implement as soon as practical a body camera program, because I truly think that our officers are acting appropriately out there. Do people make mistakes? Yes, they do. Everyone's human. There's going to be times where situations occur where some corrective measures might need to be taken, and I can tell you that we address those very, very directly, and we'll deal with those as we have to. But that's an improvement that I think the organization can make, and that we will make. So I can tell you that we do have cameras in the cars, and we're going to be evaluating and moving to a body camera program. At least that will be my recommendation to the mayor and the village board. Just because I think it'll be an improvement to the organization, and we always want to improve ourselves as much as we can.
So would you say over the next couple of days or so, Chief, that there'll be more police officers from the department out patrolling or heading into Syracuse? Do you have any idea, any information from the county as far as expectations along those lines while the curfew's in place?
Yeah, well, right now we're actually working on an operational plan. We're trying to work on OPs for the next 12 to 24 to 36 to 48 hours. We only responded to the city of Syracuse when the call went out for any available units to respond down there. That was Saturday night when that occurred. We had 3 of our members respond down to assist at that point in time. Still, we had an adequate complement here in the village to, we called in additional resources to ensure that we had coverage here in the village. Last night, we were well staffed here in the village. And, I'm not going to comment specifically on how many people or what our operational plans are, but I will just say that we're going to have on the number of individuals that we feel the village requires, and that will be an adequate number if something should occur elsewhere in the county and our colleagues in law enforcement need additional resources or backup, that we'll be able to provide some backup there, but also maintaining adequate coverage here in the village should incidents or calls occur here. Because in a few minutes, I'd certainly like to talk about some of the things we're still dealing with on an everyday basis, along with COVID, along with some of these individuals that want to protest some injustices that they feel have been perpetrated, and so we're still dealing with those things as well, which we'll get to momentarily. But we're going to have adequate people working.
Good. That was actually the next thing I was going to ask you about, just because it has been a couple of weeks since I talked to you, and with COVID, obviously, what just recently happened in the last less than a week, is top of mind for everybody. But since we did speak last, how has the village been running with COVID and stuff to you?
And I kind of harp on this every time we speak, Shelley, but I checked our stats this morning. We're averaging between the mental health and domestic calls. We're responding to one of those a day, on average. And if you extrapolate that out, we've got a village of 3.1 square miles of about 8,500 people. You extrapolate that out, town of Lysander, town of Van Buren, countywide, statewide, the number of those calls that are out there that law enforcement is responding to between mental illness, mental health, and domestic disputes, that's a significant number of calls, and that's a significant amount of time that officers are involved and engaged in those calls. We did have an arson case on May 20th on East Genesee Street. I'd like to commend the officers involved. Officer Bob Thibault was the initial officer on scene. And we had an individual in custody literally within 2 or 3 minutes of his arrival. He had an individual in custody responsible for that arson. There were people at the residence. We were very fortunate no one was injured. That could have been a devastating fire and with a loss of life. There was a significant loss of property, but the loss of life would have been immeasurable there because there were people inside. So really want to commend him and his response and the immediate apprehension. That was a Class B felony that person was charged with. Very, very serious offense. The only classification higher is a Class A, and that's reserved for really homicides or arson in the first degree, which is an explosive device. So very, very serious offense. And we did post on social media, I don't know if you saw this, about phone scams that are out there. We're getting calls from individuals. There are foreign groups that are, of course, trying to take advantage of the pandemic. And I know there's confusion out there amongst people. The government has sent out checks to certain individuals for the stimulus. They've also sent out some debit cards to individuals, which, quite frankly, I wasn't even aware of had occurred until I started seeing accounts in the media of this. So we're getting accounts from people, a lot more uptick in the various phone scams that are out there. And again, the IRS is not going to be calling you. They're not going to be asking for your date of birth or bank account number or social security numbers. If something sounds too good to be true, it is. It's a scam. If there's a question about anything, do not provide that information. Contact the police. We'll be more than happy to try and vet something for you if we can. The last thing we want is to hear someone be victimized and to lose tens of thousands of dollars because, quite frankly, we have investigated those cases, including very recently, and our heart, it's heartbreaking to see segments of our community, especially our senior population, and someone who has had, their literal life savings wiped out from a scam that's been perpetuated upon them. It's really heart-wrenching for our officers to investigate, and I can tell you that they do everything they can to try and identify who's involved. But in many cases, these individuals do not even reside within the boundaries of the continental U.S. So those things are going on. And then lastly, I wanted to comment. Obviously, we've had a great reduction in the number of people using the roadways because people have been working from home during this pandemic. Schools have been closed. We've had much less traffic. As a result, we've had much less traffic crashes. And as a result of that, much less injury from people being involved in those incidents. We're starting to see an uptick in the number of people out and about, the number of complaints I'm receiving from speeding vehicles and vehicles driving aggressively. Obviously, during this pandemic, I put out a directive initially to our officers to only engage in those vehicle and traffic stops that directly related to public safety. Individuals exhibiting signs of intoxication or driving while the ability impaired by drugs. So our officers did that, and because we were trying to keep them as healthy and safe as we possibly could.
Right.
But just so the public is aware, we receive monies from New York State every year to aggressively target aggressive driving behaviors, speeding, utilizing a cell phone, following too closely, failing to yield the right of way, going through stop signs, going through traffic lights, all those types of behaviors that are our critical contributing factors to crashes in the village. So our officers have been directed now to start gearing up again for those things. I would specifically ask members of our community to please be cognizant as you're driving through and now utilizing public transportation, the roadways more frequently. Please be cognizant of your speed. Please be cognizant of not talking on your cell phone, driver distraction. Most of our accidents, the number one contributing factor we have is following too closely. And quite frankly, we don't believe that statistic. We believe that it's probably driver inattention, which is our number two contributing factor, because we believe that probably the following too closely, there's a significant number of them where people are actually utilizing their cell phone, and they just don't want to admit to utilizing their cell phone. So I would really ask about people utilizing their cell phones, driver inattention. It's our number one contributing factor, combined with following too closely. And our officers are going to be out there aggressively enforcing the traffic laws again. So, and it's not like we're going out there because we want to write tickets. That's not the purpose. But most studies will show that there's a direct correlation between reduction in accidents and the law enforcement agency responsible for that jurisdiction, their enforcement of aggressive driving behaviors. And that's what we're really going to try and focus on, is those aggressive driving behaviors that cause accidents. Because I do not want to have to go to somebody's house at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell their loved ones that they're not coming home. Having done that before, it is the most unpleasant task that you could possibly imagine. And no officer wants to have to go make that notification. So I would just ask those in the public to kind of be aware of that, because it can happen here. We have had fatal accidents here in the village recently, and we don't want to have to go make those notifications. I'm open to any follow-up. I know I've been talking a lot about what we've been doing. Any questions that might have come in about the normal, what I call the normal stuff, Shelley, that we talk about frequently.
We talk about. Yeah, not really. There's a lot of comments. When we were talking about showing respect to the village, and when you had told the story about people shaking the officers' hands when they're leaving. just some comments from the community backing up that they do have good feelings and good vibes about the police department that we have here in the village. I'll say that we noticed a lot of us have been talking about the increased traffic. We figure with the nicer weather, people want to get out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you talked about the domestic violence, and the calls and the increase, and I can't help but feel, and I hope I'm wrong, but with the curfew being at 8 o'clock, that for the next couple of days that might even escalate, because people that maybe stay out longer so they don't have to go home right away. That crossed my mind, knowing that I was talking to you today and wondering if that was going to end up having the curfew was going to, because it's just one more thing, and it's for the safety of the community. It's for the, there's a reason behind it. But sometimes when you're in that environment, being told that you have to, get home and you have to stay. And again, it's just my 2 cents, Chief, but sometimes that's a hard thing to hear when you really just don't want to be there to begin with,
And that is a definite concern. It's something that I spoke about with our supervisor team last night. You go back to for every action, there's a reaction. Obviously, the curfew was put in place for a particular reason, but that might present some other issues for us. I hate to say we don't know, but quite frankly, I don't know until the calls come out and we have to deal with them. But it's something that we are definitely cognizant of. To kind of circle back to your comment originally there when you started talking about support from the community, we've had tremendous support. We really have from the community. A friend of the department brought in some pizza from Varsity Pizza last week. I had not an hour ago the person on the front desk come to me and say, "Chief, there's a person outside wants to speak to us." And this person had been in the military. They're a disabled veteran, and they live here in the village, and a young person. And I had a nice 5-minute chat with him out there, and he dropped off a token of his appreciation to us, and he just said, "Chief, I had such a strong interaction with the school resource officer when I was back in school." And it was Officer Christine Weeks, as a matter of fact, who's retired from our job now. It's on my list of things to do today, to call her and let her know this person showed up here. But he said, your department and it had such an impact on me. She encouraged me to do better than the path I was on. I joined the military and did a lot of things. I live here in the village. I love living here. Just I see your officers and want to bring this into you. And it was incredibly heartwarming to me for that to occur. Obviously, on May 30th, on Saturday, I had the distinct privilege. I posted to my personal Facebook page, and then I know on the department page we posted as well. I had the distinct privilege of accompanying a cadre of individuals from the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post and the American Legion here in the village. Obviously, our parade was canceled due to the pandemic, but we had a small contingent who held some services here right at the monument in front of the post office. Members stopped on the bridge. For those in the village that don't know, during the parade every year, service members drop a wreath into the Seneca River in recognition of those service members, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that are buried at sea from battles from all across wars. And then we went over to the 2 cemeteries on Tappan Street, St. Mary's and Riverview, and had ceremonies there to honor and recognize those individuals that made the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives in the line of duty for our great country. And so that was just nothing but a tremendous honor for me to be involved in that. So that was a very positive and uplifting thing for our community. That one of the unique things about Baldwinsville is we always celebrate Memorial Day on Memorial Day, May 30th. Would have been a beautiful day for a parade. And someone made that comment to me on Saturday, a little bit with a disappointment in their voice. And I turned to her and said, "It's a great day for what we're doing now." And she said, "You know what? You're right. It is." So I kind of tried to take a positive out of that. But we have just had tremendous support from the community. Baldwinsville is such a great place. We've got wonderful people working here, living here, going to school here. And, all the members here of the department, we enjoy working here. We're fortunate to work in a place such as this. And the men and women here stand at the ready. And that's all I can really say.
And I think that, kind of wrapping up this interview perfectly, because I had the intention, if you didn't mention it, to talk about the 30th, because, as much as I would have loved to have watched the parade, to see the Baldwinsville Police Department's post, to see your personal post of how the day was spent. And just, you personally doing in the morning. And I'm not familiar with all the things with the Murph, but I know it started with a 1 mile run and it ended with a 1 mile run, but there was a lot of things in the middle that you did as well.
No, so I'm a member of a local CrossFit gym, and CrossFit has what they call workouts of the day, and they have hero wads. And so on Memorial Day weekend, the CrossFit community does CrossFit Murph. For any people that saw the movie Lone Survivor, read the book, it's in memory of Lieutenant Michael Murphy, Navy SEAL, who was killed in Afghanistan. And he did this workout over in Afghanistan. He referred to the workout as body armor. So he performed it with his body armor on. I did not do that. That's my goal for next year. Hopefully, if I lose a few more pounds, I can do that. But you run 1 mile, and then you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 air squats, and then you run another mile. And you don't have to do those in a row. You can partition them and do them in groups, and that's how I did them. I did them in groups of I did 33 rounds of 3, 6, 9, 3 pull-ups. I did jumping pull-ups, 9 push-ups or 6 push-ups and 9 air squats, and then 1 round of 1, 2, 3. And it took me a little over 50 minutes to do that. But that's in memory of him, and really in all service members who have been killed in service to the country. So that's what I did in the morning. Went over to the village of Meridian because it was tough to find a pull-up bar, and one of my colleagues at CrossFit told me about a pull-up bar over in Meridian. So that's where I did it. And I'm a little sore, but sore in a good way. And it was a great way to spend the day, because then I followed up with service members here in the village and got to do that. So it really was a great day for me. And so I don't really have too much more to say. I appreciate the community support. All the members of the department appreciate it as well. And we're going to do everything we can to.
I think we lost the chief. Something tells me he might have got a phone call or something, but we were ending this anyway. If you have any additional questions for Chief Mike Lefancheck or the village police department, please reach out, let us know, send a message to us. As you heard him, you can message the police department's Facebook page as well, and they're monitoring that and they'll get back to you. I hope everybody is staying safe. If you want to be part of a protest, like Mike said, there's some peaceful ones out there. Certainly, you have the right to be heard. And I think, our police departments here in the village agree with that. So everybody enjoy your Monday. And again, if you have additional questions for the chief, let us know. And I apologize that I'm thinking it was a phone call. Sometimes that happens here on these BeLive interviews. Everybody have a great day. Bye.